My friends, every relationship begins with hope, passion, and the dream of a lasting bond. But too often that dream fades, not because of bad luck, but because of choices we make without even realizing it. Today, I want to uncover the number one mistake women make in relationships, a mistake that silently erodes love and respect over time. Lack of self-worth is one of the most silent yet destructive mistakes that many women make in relationships. It often begins subtly, without clear signs, and can grow into a deep-rooted pattern that shapes how a woman loves, gives, and receives love. When a person doesn't fully recognize their own value, they naturally start to seek validation from others, especially from their partner. This need for external approval becomes the foundation of their relationship, and over time, it creates an imbalance that is hard to repair. In the early stages of dating, this lack of self-worth might not be obvious. It often shows up in small ways. A woman might constantly agree with her partner to avoid conflict, even when she feels differently. She might stay silent about her own needs, believing that expressing them could push him away. Or she might overextend herself, going above and beyond to make him happy, thinking that the more she gives, the more love she will receive in return. While these actions may seem like signs of deep love and commitment, they are often rooted in fear. The fear of losing him, the fear of being alone, or the fear of not being enough. This pattern can create a relationship dynamic where one person holds more power than the other. When a woman believes her worth depends on how much her partner loves her, she unconsciously hands over control of her happiness to him. His moods, his approval, and his attention become the measure of her value. If he's affectionate and kind, she feels secure. But if he pulls away or criticizes her, she feels unworthy. This constant emotional roller coaster is exhausting, and it places incredible pressure on the relationship. This lack of self-worth can also cloud judgment, causing women to ignore red flags. When you don't see yourself as valuable, you are more likely to accept behavior that is disrespectful or even toxic. Instead of setting healthy boundaries, you make excuses for your partner's actions. You tell yourself he didn't mean to hurt you, or that if you just try harder, things will get better. This mindset keeps you trapped, unable to see that you deserve a relationship built on mutual respect and care. It's important to understand that healthy relationships are built on two individuals who both know and honor their worth. When a woman fully recognizes her value, she no longer needs constant reassurance from her partner. She enters the relationship as a whole, confident person rather than someone seeking to be completed. This shift changes everything. Instead of bending over backward to keep the relationship alive, she sets clear boundaries. She understands that love is about balance, not sacrifice. Building self-worth doesn't happen overnight. It starts with deep self-reflection and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths. A woman must take time to nurture herself, to explore her passions, and to build a life she loves independent of any relationship. This means setting goals, surrounding herself with supportive people, and learning to enjoy her own company. When she builds a strong sense of self, she brings more to the relationship, not from a place of need, but from a place of strength. It also requires the courage to speak up. A woman with self-worth isn't afraid to express her feelings and needs. She understands that her voice matters, and she communicates openly rather than hiding her true self. This honesty fosters deeper connection and respect in the relationship. If her partner cannot honor her boundaries or meet her with the love and respect she deserves, she is willing to walk away rather than compromise her dignity. A lack of self-worth is really about forgetting who you are. It's easy to get lost in the desire to be loved, but the most powerful love begins within. When a woman loves herself fully, she sets the tone for how others treat her. She no longer has to beg for attention or settle for crumbs of affection. Instead, she attracts relationships that reflect the strength and confidence she has built within. The truth is, love should never come at the cost of your identity. A relationship should be a partnership of equals, not a situation where one person constantly gives while the other takes. When you recognize your worth, you create space for a healthier, deeper connection, and if the person you're with cannot meet you at that level, you have the strength to let go and trust that something better awaits. The journey towards self-worth is ongoing, but it is one of the most empowering steps any woman can take. It is the foundation of a fulfilling relationship and a fulfilling life. When you know your value, you no longer fear being alone because you realize you are already whole. And in that wholeness, you create a love that is strong, balanced, and unshakable. Overgiving without boundaries is one of the most common and often misunderstood mistakes that many women make in relationships. On the surface, giving might seem like a pure expression of love, care, and devotion. In the beginning, it feels natural and even rewarding to go out of your way to make your partner happy, to anticipate his needs, and to support him through challenges. However, when giving is done without clear boundaries, it begins to shift from a loving act to a destructive habit that can harm both the woman and the relationship itself. At the start of a relationship, this overgiving often looks like small sacrifices. A woman may cancel plans with friends to be available for him, take on responsibilities that should be shared, or continuously prioritize his happiness over her own. These actions are often driven by a deep desire to be seen as loving, supportive, and indispensable. She believes that the more she gives, the more secure the relationship will become. Unfortunately, what often happens is the opposite. Instead of strengthening the bond, this imbalance creates a dynamic where one person gives endlessly while the other simply receives, often without appreciating the effort. The danger lies in the lack of balance. Relationships are meant to be a mutual exchange of care, respect, and support. When one person constantly pours out their time, energy, and emotional resources without receiving the same effort in return, resentment begins to build. This resentment might not appear immediately. In fact, many women ignore their own exhaustion, convincing themselves that love is supposed to be selfless and that giving more will eventually inspire their partner to reciprocate. But over time, the weight of always being the giver becomes heavy. She may begin to feel unseen, undervalued, and taken for granted, even though she rarely speaks up about it. Another consequence of overgiving without boundaries is that it teaches the partner how to treat her. People naturally adjust to the dynamics they are presented with. If she constantly says yes, always fixes problems, and never expresses her own needs, her partner may come to expect this behavior as normal. Without realizing it, she sets a standard where her well-being is secondary to his, and he might not even consider that she is struggling. This is why boundaries are essential. They act as invisible lines that protect both individuals and the relationship. Without them, the relationship becomes one-sided and unhealthy. The root of overgiving lies in fear. Some women give excessively because they are afraid of conflict. They avoid saying no or setting limits because they fear it will lead to an argument or rejection. Others give because they fear abandonment. Deep down, they believe that if they are endlessly accommodating and self-sacrificing, their partner will never leave. This fear-driven giving is not true love. It is a form of survival. It keeps a woman trapped in a cycle of doing more and more while her own needs and desires fade into the background. Breaking free from this pattern begins with self-awareness. A woman must first recognize the moments when she gives out of fear or obligation rather than genuine desire. It's not wrong to be generous or caring in a relationship, but the intention behind it matters. Healthy giving comes from a place of love and balance, while unhealthy giving comes from a place of desperation or insecurity. Once she becomes aware, the next step is to set clear boundaries. This does not mean building walls or withholding love. Instead, it's about communicating openly and honestly. It's about saying no when something feels wrong, asking for what she needs, and expecting mutual effort in return. Boundaries are a way of teaching others how to treat us, and they ensure that giving remains an act of choice rather than obligation. Learning to give with boundaries also allows a woman to maintain her own identity. When she constantly sacrifices her time, energy, and dreams for the relationship, she slowly loses touch with who she is outside of it. By creating space for her own growth and happiness, she strengthens herself and in turn strengthens the relationship. A healthy partnership is not about one person doing everything. It's about two people meeting each other halfway. Overgiving without boundaries often leads to exhaustion and heartbreak. But when a woman learns to balance her generosity with self-respect, everything changes. She no longer feels drained because she gives from a place of abundance, not emptiness. She no longer feels unappreciated because she clearly communicates her needs. Most importantly, she no longer fears losing the relationship because she knows her worth is not measured by how much she gives, but by who she is. This shift creates a relationship that is built on mutual respect, balance, and true love, where both partners feel seen, valued, and cherished. Ignoring red flags early on is one of the most common yet most dangerous mistakes that can completely change the course of a relationship. In the early stages of love, everything feels exciting and new. The attraction is strong, conversations are effortless, and every moment spent together feels magical. During this time, many women want to believe they've found someone special, someone who truly sees and values them. Because of this intense emotional connection, they often overlook subtle warning signs, small behaviors or patterns that hint at deeper issues. These early red flags are easy to dismiss because hope and desire cloud judgment. But as time passes, these same warning signs usually grow stronger and cause deep pain, frustration, and heartbreak. The reason many women ignore red flags in the beginning is simple. They don't want to disrupt the beautiful fantasy they've created in their mind. When you really like someone, your heart can overpower your logic. If he says something disrespectful, you might laugh it off or tell yourself he didn't mean it. If he cancels plans at the last minute, you might convince yourself he's just busy. If he avoids defining the relationship, you might rationalize that he needs more time. In each of these situations, there's a small voice inside telling you something isn't right, but it's often silenced by the louder voice that says, if I just wait a little longer, things will get better. The problem with ignoring these signs is that they rarely disappear on their own. In fact, they tend to grow stronger as the relationship deepens. For example, a man who shows controlling behavior early on might later become possessive or even emotionally abusive. A partner who avoids honest conversations at the start might later completely shut down communication when serious issues arise. What seemed like a minor issue in the beginning can escalate into a major problem, leaving the woman feeling stuck and confused about how things went wrong. One of the most dangerous aspects of ignoring red flags is that it teaches the other person what you're willing to accept. When you overlook bad behavior without addressing it, you send a silent message, "This is okay with me." Over time, this can lead to a relationship where your needs and boundaries are consistently disregarded. It also erodes your self-respect. Deep down, you might feel angry or resentful, but because you allowed the behavior to continue, you start blaming yourself for not standing up earlier. This internal conflict creates emotional exhaustion and can make you feel powerless. The reason women ignore red flags has to do with fear of being alone, fear of starting over, or fear that they won't find anyone better. When you've invested time and emotions into someone, walking away can feel like failure. You hold on to the hope that he will change or that love will be enough to fix the problems. Unfortunately, staying in a relationship that's built on ignoring warning signs only delays the inevitable. What you tolerate today often becomes the foundation of tomorrow's pain. Learning to recognize and address red flags early is essential for building a healthy, balanced relationship. This requires paying attention to patterns rather than isolated incidents. Everyone makes mistakes, but when certain behaviors repeat, like dishonesty, disrespect, lack of effort, or unwillingness to communicate, those are clear signs of deeper issues. It's also important to trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it usually is. Too often, women dismiss their intuition because they want proof or because they don't want to seem dramatic. But your inner voice is a powerful guide, and listening to it can save you years of heartache. Addressing red flags doesn't always mean walking away immediately. Sometimes it means having an honest, open conversation about what you've noticed and how it makes you feel. A healthy partner will listen, acknowledge your concerns, and make a genuine effort to change. However, if you find yourself repeatedly having the same conversations with no real change, it's a sign that the relationship may not be right for you. Love should never require you to ignore your needs or compromise your dignity. A strong relationship is built on mutual respect, trust, and shared values. If these elements are missing at the start, they rarely appear later. By paying attention to red flags early on, you give yourself the power to make informed decisions about your future. You protect your heart from unnecessary pain and create space for the kind of love that uplifts rather than drains you. Remember, walking away from the wrong person is never a loss. It's an act of self-respect and a step toward the relationship you truly deserve. Trying to change a partner is one of the most common yet painful mistakes many women make in relationships. It often begins with good intentions and a deep belief in the potential of the other person. In the early stages of love, it's natural to see someone not only for who they are but also for who they could become. You might see their flaws, weaknesses, or destructive habits and tell yourself, with enough love, support, and patience, I can help them grow into the person I know they can be. This mindset feels compassionate and hopeful at first, but over time, it can create a cycle of frustration, resentment, and heartbreak. When you try to change someone, you are essentially entering into a relationship with a version of them that exists only in your mind, not in reality. You fall in love with their potential rather than their current character and choices. This can lead to constant disappointment because no matter how much effort you put in, they may not want to change, or they may not even see the need to. Change is deeply personal. It can only happen when the person themselves decides they are ready and willing to grow. If that decision doesn't come from within them, any changes they make to please you are likely to be temporary or surface level. This pattern of trying to fix a partner begins with small things. Maybe you notice how he handles conflict poorly, avoids taking responsibility, or neglects important areas of his life, like his career or health. Instead of accepting that this is who he is right now, you step in to help. You might offer advice, make suggestions, or even take over certain tasks for him. At first, he may appreciate it or even go along with it to keep the peace. But as time goes on, he may begin to feel controlled or criticized, which can create tension and push him further away. This dynamic can become especially toxic when there are serious issues involved, like dishonesty, lack of respect, or unhealthy behaviors. A woman who deeply loves her partner may convince herself that if she just loves him enough, he will stop lying, start communicating better, or treat her with the care she deserves. This belief can keep her stuck for years, holding on to the hope that things will change. Unfortunately, hope alone cannot transform someone's behavior. Love may inspire growth, but it cannot force it. Another problem with trying to change someone is that it often causes you to lose sight of yourself. When you are constantly focused on fixing your partner, you may begin to neglect your own needs, dreams, and boundaries. The relationship becomes centered around their growth, their issues, and their potential, while your own well-being fades into the background. This imbalance can leave you feeling drained, unappreciated, and unfulfilled. It also creates a dynamic where the relationship never truly feels equal because one person is always the teacher or savior, and the other is always the student or project. It's important to understand that acceptance is a key ingredient in any healthy relationship. This doesn't mean tolerating harmful behavior or settling for less than you deserve. Rather, it means clearly seeing who your partner is today and deciding whether you can love and respect them as they are, without expecting them to change into someone else. If there are fundamental incompatibilities, like different values, life goals, or communication styles, it's better to acknowledge them early on than to spend years trying to force the relationship to fit. When you stop trying to change someone, you create space for them to take responsibility for their own growth. If they truly care about the relationship and want to be a better partner, they will take action on their own. But if they don't, that is valuable information for you to have. It allows you to make a clear decision about whether to stay or to walk away, rather than staying trapped in a cycle of hope and disappointment. Love is not about fixing someone, it's about partnership and mutual growth. A healthy relationship is built when two whole individuals come together, supporting and inspiring each other while also respecting each other's independence. When you accept your partner as they are, you are free to focus on building connection and intimacy rather than constantly trying to mold them into someone they are not. Trying to change a partner often comes from a place of fear, fear of being alone, Fear that you won't find someone better, or fear that if you don't fix them, the relationship will fall apart. But clinging to someone's potential only delays the inevitable. The sooner you accept that you cannot control another person's growth, the sooner you can step into your own power. Love is about choice. You choose to love someone not because of who they might become someday, but because of who they are right now. And if who they are does not align with the life and relationship you want, it is far better to walk away than to spend years trying to build a dream that exists only in your mind. True love doesn't need fixing. It needs understanding, respect, and the freedom for both partners to grow on their own terms. Neglecting personal growth is one of the most subtle yet damaging mistakes that many women make in relationships. At first, it may seem harmless or even natural. When you fall in love, it's easy to pour all your time, energy, and attention into the relationship. You want to be present for your partner, to nurture the bond, and to build a shared life together. In the beginning, this often feels exciting and fulfilling, like you're investing in something beautiful. But over time, if all of your focus remains on the relationship and none on your own dreams, passions, and identity, you risk losing yourself completely. Personal growth is what keeps an individual strong, independent, and confident. It's about continually learning, evolving, and becoming the best version of yourself, not for anyone else, but for you. When a woman neglects her growth, she begins to rely too heavily on her partner for happiness, validation, and purpose. This creates a dangerous imbalance. Instead of two whole individuals coming together to form a partnership, the relationship becomes one person's entire world while the other remains more independent. This dynamic often leads to dependency, resentment, and eventually heartbreak. In the early stages of neglecting personal growth, the changes can be subtle. A woman might stop pursuing her hobbies because she's spending all her free time with her partner. She might start putting off her career goals or education plans to prioritize his needs or schedule. She might even change the way she dresses, speaks, or behaves to better fit into his world. None of these actions seem alarming at first, and she may even believe they're just part of being in a committed relationship. But slowly, without realizing it, she begins to drift away from her true self. This loss of identity can lead to feelings of emptiness and dissatisfaction. Even if the relationship is stable, she may start to feel like something is missing. That something is often her own sense of purpose. Without personal growth, a woman's entire sense of self becomes tied to her partner and the relationship. If things are going well between them, she feels happy and secure. But if there's conflict or distance, her entire world feels like it's falling apart because she has nothing else to ground her. This dependency can also create pressure within the relationship. When one person relies on the other to meet all their emotional and personal needs, it can feel suffocating to the partner. It's unfair to expect another person to be your entire source of fulfillment. Healthy relationships are built when both people have their own interests, friends, and passions outside of the relationship. These individual pursuits bring energy and depth back into the partnership, making it richer and more balanced. Another danger of neglecting personal growth is that it often leads to a lack of boundaries. When you don't have a strong sense of self, it's harder to stand up for what you want and need. You might start tolerating behaviors or situations that go against your values because you fear losing the relationship. You might avoid conflicts altogether or agree to things you don't truly want, simply to keep the peace. Over time, this erodes self-respect and creates an unhealthy dynamic where one person's desires always come first while the others are pushed aside. The key to avoiding this trap is to consistently invest in yourself, even while you are deeply in love. This means continuing to pursue your personal goals, whether they are related to your career, education, creativity, or physical well-being. It means maintaining friendships and connections outside of the relationship. It also means setting aside time for self-reflection and growth, whether through reading, learning new skills, or simply spending time alone to understand yourself better. When you prioritize personal growth, you bring more to the relationship. Instead of depending on your partner to complete you, you show up as a whole, confident individual. This creates a dynamic of mutual respect where both people can inspire and support each other's growth without feeling threatened or dependent. A relationship like this thrives because it's built on two strong foundations rather than one person carrying the weight of both. It's important to remember that a healthy relationship should add to your life, not become your entire life. Love is beautiful, but it should never require you to give up your dreams, passions, or individuality. When you neglect personal growth, you risk becoming lost in someone else's world. But when you stay committed to your own evolution, you not only strengthen yourself, you also create a relationship that is vibrant, balanced, and filled with respect. The best gift you can give to a relationship is your own wholeness. By continuing to grow, you ensure that you never lose sight of who you are. And when both partners commit to this journey of growth, the relationship becomes a space where love can flourish without fear, dependency, or imbalance. This is the foundation of a truly lasting and fulfilling partnership. Fear of being alone is one of the most powerful and deeply rooted reasons why many women stay in relationships that are unfulfilling, unhealthy, or even toxic. It is a quiet force that shapes decisions, influences behavior, and keeps people trapped in situations that are beneath what they truly deserve. This fear doesn't always show up in obvious ways. Sometimes it hides beneath rationalizations like, "No relationship is perfect," or "At least he's trying." Other times it appears as a deep, gnawing anxiety at the thought of starting over or facing life without a partner. Over time, this fear can become so strong that it outweighs logic, self-respect, and even happiness. The fear of being alone often stems from childhood experiences, past heartbreaks, or societal conditioning. Many women grow up with messages that their value is tied to being in a relationship or having someone by their side. Movies, culture, and even family expectations can reinforce the idea that being single means being incomplete or undesirable. As a result, the thought of being without a partner doesn't just feel lonely, it feels like failure. This belief makes it incredibly difficult to walk away from a relationship, even when every part of you knows it's not right. It changes the way a woman approaches love. Instead of entering a relationship from a place of strength and choice, she enters from a place of need and survival. She may tolerate behavior she would normally reject, like lack of respect, dishonesty, or neglect, because deep down, she believes that having someone, even someone who treats her poorly, is better than having no one at all. This mindset can lead to settling for far less than she deserves. Over time, it erodes her self-worth, as every compromise she makes silently reinforces the belief that she isn't worthy of better love. This fear also causes many women to rush into relationships without fully getting to know themselves or the other person. They may move too quickly, confusing attention for connection or passion for compatibility. In their haste to avoid being alone, they overlook warning signs and red flags. Later, when problems arise, they feel stuck because leaving would mean returning to the very loneliness they are so afraid of. This creates a painful cycle, jumping into relationships to escape loneliness, then staying in them out of fear, even when they're unhappy. One of the most damaging aspects of this fear is how it silences a woman's voice. She may avoid speaking up about her needs or setting boundaries because she's terrified of rocking the boat. The thought of her partner leaving feels unbearable, so she swallows her feelings and convinces herself to be grateful for whatever she's getting. Over time, this silence builds resentment and disconnect, but because she has suppressed her own truth for so long, she may not even recognize herself anymore. The relationship becomes less about love and more about survival. Breaking free from the fear of being alone begins with a powerful shift in perspective. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. In fact, time spent alone can be one of the most healing and empowering experiences a person can have. It provides space to rediscover who you are outside of a relationship, to reconnect with your passions, and to build a life that feels whole and fulfilling on its own. When you learn to enjoy your own company and cultivate inner strength, you no longer feel desperate to fill the emptiness with another person. This doesn't mean giving up on love. It means approaching relationships from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. Instead of clinging to a partner out of fear, you choose to be with someone because they genuinely add value to your already full life. This shift transforms the entire dynamic. You are no longer willing to tolerate disrespect or neglect because you know you are perfectly capable of standing on your own. Love becomes a choice, not a lifeline. Learning to face the fear of being alone also requires building a strong support system. Friendships, family connections, hobbies, and personal goals can all serve as anchors that remind you that your worth isn't tied to romantic love. The stronger these foundations are, the less frightening it feels to walk away from a relationship that doesn't serve you. Overcoming the fear of being alone is about reclaiming your power. It's about recognizing that you are already whole even without a partner. When you embrace solitude as an opportunity for growth rather than something to be feared, you set a new standard for what you will and will not accept in a relationship. This courage allows you to wait for a love that is healthy, balanced, and true. The truth is, being alone for a while is far better than being with someone who makes you feel lonely in their presence. When you stop running from solitude and instead use it to build yourself up, you create a future where relationships are no longer driven by fear, but by mutual respect, joy, and choice. In that space, love becomes what it was always meant to be, a beautiful addition to your life, not the definition of it.